We are all part of God. We are God in action. And the soul is the microcosm of the macrocosm. What that means is God is everything. And then basically we have come out, the soul has come out to have an experience within this whole universe. Some children look so heavy and so angry as a nature of their personality, and some are so joyous and light. That's previous karma, sanskar we say in Hindi, that's their sanskar coming into this life. So our soul carries that. The karmic records, if you will, the akashic records are carried in the soul. Then the soul comes back in another human form because we're here to evolve. All souls begin to differ, our alternate journeys begin to differ of human beings because we're making these new karmic exchanges and patterns and records as we live in this human life. We have started looking at the soul as something separate than us, like we have a soul, like a tool. But in essence, we are the soul. The animal has movement, but it doesn't have thought process. It doesn't have a frontal lobe to make awareness decisions. It's survival. I need to eat, sleep, drink, reproduce, and do it all again. The human has a frontal lobe, has consciousness, and the soul is basically in a human experience to awaken. So we are spiritual beings having a human experience. If we start practicing the characteristics of the soul, just kindness, compassion, love, if we find something to love in each person, our life will become much more easier. I think remembrance of who I am is very, very important. I am a soul having a human experience.
Hello, and welcome to the Spirituality Made Simple podcast series. Today, we're going to discuss the soul. What is it really? Where does it come from? And where does it go after our time on this planet? What is the purpose of it in spirituality, and so on? So here's our guest, Sukhy ji. Let's dive right into it. So how would you define soul in your own words? And if you can elaborate on, like I said, the purpose of it and how it was created, where it comes from and where it goes. And we'll talk about everything else in between after, bit by bit.
Okay, Kiranji, let's dive right in. So the soul is actually, we have started looking at the soul as something separate than us. Like we have a soul, like a tool. But in essence, we are the soul. The soul is us, and we're wearing a body, we're using a mind, and that's tools that the soul carries. So it's kind of a uniform that the soul is wearing. So we are the soul. And that basically then changes the way we look at our life and our life experience. So this soul is having a human experience.
Rather than vice versa.
So when we start looking at from there, then we can go into this podcast, I think, in a very different way than the soul is something that we've borrowed or used or are using, and then somehow it goes away. The soul is our true self. We are a soul having a human experience. So where does the soul come from? Was your second question. The soul, basically our souls. So if we go back to origination, if you want to, shall we go back there? So basically we are all part of God. We are God in action. And the soul is the microcosm of the macrocosm. What that means is God is everything. And then basically we have come out, the soul has come out to have an experience.
We all souls at the same sort of level or stage or point, or are we at different, based on our starting points? Like, I really would like to get some clarity on this.
Okay, so the souls in the human experience, we all start at third density. So first density is the minerals, the rocks. Second density is the lower density part is plants. Higher density of the second density is animals. And then in third density, we have the human experience. So we all start at the same level in the human experience. What determines our evolution is what we do in the human experience. Okay. So, for example, if we've all come at the same exact time, having this human experience, some of us will be very aware and cognizant about the purpose of this human experience and be very focused on that to go back to oneness, evolve into oneness. Some will be, I have free will. Well, I'd like to try this and I'd like to try this and I'd like to do this. And then therein lies the traps of the mind and the ego. So we all start in third density at the same place, but then what we do, our behaviors, our ego, our mind, our soul, all have some kind of play in what ends up happening in each lifetime.
So, you know what? I still need more clarity because from what you're saying, it sounds like, yes, we all starting at third density.
Right.
But in my understanding, even within the third density, there's so much variation.
Absolutely.
There are souls that are kind and gentle and holy or whatever based on their previous. There's also reincarnation kind of ties in with this, and maybe we'll do a separate podcast on that topic on reincarnation. So I don't want to sort of mix it in, but based on whether this is our first human experience or this is our 500th or 50th, human experience and what we've done over several lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So our karmic history. So I think, my understanding is that some souls are very clean and pure and kind and all compassionate and all of that. And there are other ones who are cruel and cheating, unethical, murdering, looting, whatever. So I want some clarity around that because there's all kinds as we see, in the world.
Yeah. So what is your specific question then?
So just the fact that why is there so much variation in the expression of souls, right? Yeah. Like from how you say it, is like we all start at third density, but are we all equal or are we all same or similar? To me, it doesn't seem that way.
So let's put it this way then. Say there's a family, the parents have 5 children. Mm-hmm. They all have the same footing. They all have the same opportunities. They have the same parents. Mm-hmm. They have the same tools, techniques, everything available to them. But they all take on their different paths. Mm-hmm. So, one might become a doctor, one might become a lawyer, one might become a thief, engineer, one might become a thief, and one might become a rapist.
Exactly.
Who knows? But they all have the same opportunities. But so what determines their life experience is how much they go off into their free will.
So in the current lifetime, you are saying,
if we're talking about the first life that they have ever as a human, what determines is how sidetracked do we get. Temptation, it's true. How tempted do we get by the vices or the maya, the illusion, mm-hmm. All the lower chakra pulls, I say, the survival and the temptations and just the illusion of life. That will take us into a whole different direction. Whereas, say, one of those 5 children is very focused on, no, I came here to awaken and I'm going to do that and I don't need any of this. Mm-hmm. So we have free will. Free will is a big part of this human experience and the veil of illusion.
So what you're saying, I get it, like within their first, let's say, lifetime, this is what, but at any point in time now, right, in our current reality, at any point in time, we have over 7 billion people on the planet. Mm. So some souls might be younger and some souls are very old and they've been here hundreds of times or thousands of times. So given that...
Millions of times.
Really. So given that is what I'm saying is, so none of us are really, our starting points are different and we're not the same. I guess we all have our own history and all of that. So that's what I wanted to, I'd like you to sort of explain that a little bit more in the context of our spiritual journey. So how that helps or hinders.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're talking about is karma. So once we've started this human experience, the accumulation of experiences and karma and how that plays out in life, am I correct? Is that your question? So why do some people come hundreds of lifetimes? Why do some people come millions of lifetimes and we don't evolve from this human experience?
That too, yes.
That too. Okay, so let's go there, and then maybe I'll answer both questions in there. So we do all start at the same place. You know, we're all entry-level souls, and we've come to awaken. Every person takes off on their own tangent, if you will, and within that lifetime, we accumulate karma. So after we leave this human experience, the karmic imprint is on our soul.
Right.
And it is embedded in our soul, just like a phone chip in a phone. Like the whole phone information is carried in that chip, and the phone can be destroyed, but the chip is still carrying that. We put that into the next phone, and there you go, all the information's there. So our soul carries that. The karmic records, if you will, the akashic records are carried in the soul. Then the soul comes back in another human form, because we're here to evolve. Soon as we leave this human experience, there's a remembrance. While we're alive, there's a veil of illusion. The veil is put there, so we don't remember actually why we're here, but we get engrossed in this human experience. And some people remember, some people don't, and we get caught up. But once we leave this human experience, the body's gone, the mind's gone, there is no illusion left. The soul remembers. And soon as we leave this human experience, the soul's like,
I messed it up.
I went for this, and I ended up entangled in this, and no, I want to go back and fix this. And so the next life begins, and then we forget again, etc., etc., etc. So then why do some people look so, even children actually, some children look so heavy and so angry as a nature of their personality, and some are so joyous and light. That's previous like karma, sanskar, we say in Hindi, that's their sanskar coming into this life. And so, you know, we make sacred contracts before we come here to learn the lessons of this human life. And we know before we come here that we want to learn these lessons, but again, we forget when we come here. And that's why all souls begin to differ, and our alternate journeys begin to differ of human beings, because we're making these new karmic exchanges and patterns and records as we live in this human life. So it's not cookie cutter. It's not cookie cutter that every soul comes into this human experience and has one life and it's done. It's what we do in this life.
True. And the way the world is set up now, it's so full of distractions and, like we say, the illusion, Maya, whatever. Like, I think it's, in my opinion, it's really peaked. And I don't know, I mean, this is just how it feels now. Then
I think you're right.
Many people cannot even sit still. Like our generation was still easier. I think they're younger now. They have to be constantly preoccupied with something. They have to have something. Otherwise, I'm bored. Like, there's no... Whereas if I look back and like our grandparents' generation, they could just sit there for hours doing nothing. They were just still and they were at peace. And in the ancient texts in Sanskrit, like there is the Upanishads, for example, the Hindu sacred texts, which literally translated means just being able to sit with yourself and sit still. So I think the current atmosphere, like in terms of the world, is not very conducive to
that. 15 seconds, they say, now is the attention span. 15 seconds. That's not a good sign for being mindful and meditative. It's like a very, very fast-paced mindset.
So, Sukhi, now that we've established we are souls having a human experience in this world with a purpose to awaken, so in our daily lives, if we don't feel or recognize that presence of the soul, can you give us some practical tips on how to connect with it or recognize it or feel it?
Coming back to Karim, we are it. So as soon as we start relating to the body or mind, It's a more of a remembrance of coming back to who we really are. I think it's a good idea to establish some kind of mindfulness, then meditation practice in our daily life. Because we have to cut that pattern of do. We talked about this before. And when we're very task driven or materialistic driven, we're really relating to the body and the mind. So in our daily lives, we need some time to break that pattern and connect back to who we are. When we connect on a daily basis to who we are, not just once a week or once a month, but really have an established practice daily, being who we really are, it becomes second nature. We know then that, oh, I'm stressed. I'm not in touch with my true essence, or I'm, distracted, or I'm whatever the side effects are of not being connected. We start recognizing that, and then we can quickly come back to our center.
So what I'm hearing is consistency is key.
Consistency is key in a practice, a daily practice of meditation that helps us stay centered. When we're centered, we're much more connected to the soul than the mind and body. And then when we come away from that centeredness, we know we have that, measuring tool, you could say, of how far away I've come from my true essence. So just coming back to centeredness. So take some time out in our daily, in middle of the day then, when we realize we're stressed, when we realize that something's going on that, it's taking me away from my calmness, practice it, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, come back to it.
I see. So would you say, are there some experiences or challenges in the world that help us to evolve and connect with our soul more than others?
Yeah, usually, unfortunately, I would say for our experience that most pain and trauma tears our heart open and really connects us back to our truth through emotion and through humility. We connect quicker to our true essence.
Right.
Very seldom I've seen people when they're, in their strong place, or they have everything and they're happy, and that they can connect quickly to the center. It's usually through pain that the heart tears open and we fall to our knees, and humility. But there is there is actually, instead of going that, we say God whispers first, communicates first through a whisper, and then a talk, and then a shout, and then a 2x4 across the head. So the 2x4 across the head is the big traumas that happen in our life, and therefore we fall to our knees. But we don't want to do that. Like I would say, let's stay connected to our true essence on an everyday basis. Let's come from that place instead of coming from the mind and then saying, oh, I need 5 minutes a day to meditate and be in touch with my soul. I am a soul. Let's come from that place in everything we do, and then use the mind and know that we're using our body as a tool. I'm not sure if I answered your question went off on a...
No, it's interesting. Actually, it's good to know. So I think what I'm getting is that we should try and stay connected or aware of the soul's presence all day long, and sort of catch ourselves from being caught up in our mind more often, which is what I think.
Yeah, I am a soul. I am a soul. So it's remembrance. I am a soul having a human experience. It's like, oh, and then, humor kicks in. We can laugh at certain experiences. It's like, oh, that happened. It's not the end of the world. It's just an experience.
Yeah, it's just that the way things are set up in today's world, I think we all tend to identify more with our titles, our occupations, our education, or socioeconomic standing, or
roles.
All roles. And so all those worldly things which are more connected, I guess, with the mind or not the soul.
Not the soul at all, yeah.
And that's what tend, myself included, that's what we tend to think. So somehow we have to check
Yeah. So what happens is, and that's part of the human experience. We accumulate all these identities and roles and possessions and titles and certificates and degrees and all of that. And then at some point we start peeling them away. Even age will do that. The job goes, who am I without the job? A spouse passes away, who am I without the spouse? The children move, who am I without the children? The body starts to give, who am I without the body? The true questions, or the mind starts to go, who am I when the mind is gone? So who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And that will quickly bring us back to the soul and our true essence.
And that's why we see traditionally, at least in our culture, how the older people all suddenly gravitate towards religion and piety and worship and, all that.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're young, you're just busy,
We're distracted.
and also have to make a living, have to do this, have to do all the roles and responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
So how does one then strike a balance between the worldly demands that that I was just saying, like, all those roles and responsibilities, and the need or requirements of the soul for that to flourish? So how do we
make it, going back to, we make it a daily practice. I think remembrance of who I am is very, very important. I am a soul having a human experience. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. If we keep remembering that, it's a very quick way to bring us back to I am a spiritual being having a human experience. When we go on vacation, we don't make that our reality. We know we're going to go back home. So we have this experience, and it's a great experience or not so great experience, but we know this too shall end. That's the same thing with this human experience. Let's not take it so seriously. We're here having a human experience. We're on holiday, you can say. And we're, nothing goes with us except for our deeds. And so let's just stay in tune with that. That will make it very easy to come from a spiritual place in everything we do, and have a daily practice. I can't say it enough. To have a daily meditative practice is essential to staying centered and, mindful and coming from a place of meaning.
So what would you say then, your understanding and knowledge of the soul, how has that impacted your perspective on life, relationships, the challenges that daily life presents us with? How did that all get impacted?
So when like everybody else in my 20s, I was, this young person, and I thought that being successful was very important, or being a good mother or a good wife, and all the things that we're trained to be, especially in the Eastern mindset. It's very much other focused. And then when the spiritual experiences, I would say that brought me back to my true self, and I learned that, no, I'm actually a spiritual being having a human experience. It brought me back to what are the characteristics of the soul? The characteristics of the soul are kindness, compassion, humanity, charity, service, unconditional love. It brought me back to those characteristics, and a remembrance of, if I'm always coming from there, not only is my life good, but everybody I come in touch with, they will feel something. They will feel that from me, and maybe inspire them to get in touch with their true selves. And unconditional love can melt the most stubborn mindset.
Wow. So in closing, if you had one sentence or what to say to the audience regarding our topic today, what would you say?
Regarding this topic today is, remember, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Let's feed the soul, at least have some kind of a daily practice. And if we start practicing the characteristics of the soul, just kindness, compassion, love, find something to love in each person in front of us instead of judgment. The opposite of love is judgment. If we find something to love in each person, our life will become much more easier, and the people that we are in touch with and in communication with, we will impact them on a very deep level and will inspire change. Inevitably, we'll all begin to evolve into oneness.
Great. Thank you so much, Sukhi.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for watching. And our next podcast is going to be about meditation and mindfulness. See you then.